We'll see. Okay, we get that screen working. Now let's see if we get this screen working. Come on. Come on. There we go. Okay. Got all that. Got this going on, and I think everything is cool. Good morning. Unless it is afternoon or evening where you are, then have a good one of those as well. Hello from Shanghai, China. Just played my first game of Planet 28 after a recommendation from here. Nice. Good to hear it. Let's see here. Junction City, Wisconsin. Cornwall, UK. Rolled out of bed just in time in Toronto. Got Peoria, Illinois. Oshawa, Ontario. How you doing, Roan? Limerick, Ireland. Will this be streamed on Twitch at the same time? No, this is just on YouTube. Good morning from Minnesota. Hello from Bern, Switzerland. Winnipeg. Shanghai. Scotland. South Carolina. Moderator Matt's asking why there's already 2 dislikes. Well, you know, this is what happens. Let's see here. I'm hoping some Kill Team news will bring me back to the hobby. I've been idle for months now. Greetings from South Florida. Manchester. Nova. Let's see here. We've got Wales, Scotland, Colchester, Costa Rica, Netherlands. Good morning from LA. Looking to base a couple of custodes today. Nice. Is it custodes or custodes? I never remember. Let me see here. Morning from Montreal. Good morning from your neighbors in Minnesota. We got Massachusetts, Exeter, France, Denmark, Connecticut, Somerset, UK. Let's see here. Good morning, everyone. This is like the only hobby community I get anymore. Well, that's, you know, it's something. So we're glad to have you. Sweden, Exeter, Jonesboro, Illinois. Let's see here. Huntington Beach, California. Louisville, Kentucky. Set my alarm for this. Nice. That's good to hear. Morning from Eastern Iowa. Sweden, Alabama. There's probably supposed to be another A on there, but I kind of just like the word Alabama. It's fun. It sounds like something that a wizard would say. Alabama. Good morning from Milwaukee. Still really new, but if you get a chance to come down to Iowa, we'd love a game with you. Well, eventually when we can actually go places and do things and be with people again, it's, you know. Let's see here. Hello from Southern California. Building, then going to paint some MDF terrain for Frostgrave this morning. Nice. I've got my copy of Frostgrave 2nd edition right here. And it's currently holding up a copy of the most recent White Dwarf. Thumbs down or actually thumbs up from Australian fans. That makes sense then. Moscow, Russia. Rio de Janeiro. Uncle Adam, great irregulars chat yesterday. Sorry I could not catch it live. Work interfered again. Love the tiny Viking helmet. Yes. It's back up there on top of the hutch back there. There's a tiny little Viking helmet for cats. It's generally only been worn by one cat, and he's not a fan of it, but yeah. Let's see here. Made a live stream. Dorset, UK. Building Doctor Who, Exterminate Daleks, and Cybermen. Ready for priming. Nice. Yeah, cold and cruddy, gloomy day here. Good for indoor activities or football. Yeah, it rained this morning, like early, and now everything's just kind of wet, but I'm looking at my watch here. It's going to be a high of about 45 Fahrenheit, which is not particularly high. So yeah, it's going to be looks like kind of cloudy and I didn't have any plans for doing anything in the yard today, so that's fine by me, as it turns out. Genuine Vision, how you doing here? Afternoon from a rather chilly Ireland. Roy says, excited for Stargrave. Yeah, I'm very interested in Stargrave as well. I wish it wasn't April that it was coming out, but, you know, what are you going to do? Let's see here. We've got Thailand. Bennett says, are you streaming on Twitch? I may jump over. No. I only the Every Other Sunday show I just stream on YouTube. Because I've been doing it for longer than I've been doing Twitch. Also, from what I understand, because I'm a partner now on Twitch, you're not supposed to multi-stream if you're a partner on Twitch. Part of the deal is that I don't want to say exclusive, because I'm obviously doing this, and that's fine, but you're not supposed to stream to multiple platforms at once if you're a partner on Twitch, from what I understand. So, yeah. Let's see here. Hello from Dublin. Enjoying the last lazy Sunday before newborn arrives. Oh, yeah, that'll definitely make you busy. Did you get any snow yesterday? No, it was nearly 60 yesterday. It was not warm, but it was, like I said, at one point I had to go. Where did I go? Oh, I went and picked up carryout in, I don't know, 6 o'clock. And it was, according to the thermometer in my car or whatever, it said it was like 59 or something like that. So it was warm here. It didn't rain or snow. But I know up north a bit it did snow, so. Do you think the release is 2021 because the new infantry model is coming up for other factions? Well, I mean, they basically said, if you're talking about this new thing that they talked about yesterday for Kill Team, this Pariah Nexus thing, or whatever it's called, that thing, I think that they're saying it's going to come out next year anyway. So I don't know if they're a lot clearer than that, but it does seem that some new thing is going to be coming out soon. Let's see here. We already have had snow just a couple hours north of you, Uncle Adam. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Like I said, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's see here. What else? Just got my Super Fantasy Brawl Kickstarter, so I'm starting to paint some Super Fantasy Brawlers. Is that like a wrestling thing? That's kind of cool. Hello from upstate New York. I've heard other content creators say the same thing about multi-streams. Yeah, like I said, I think that, like I said, I believe it's part of the Twitch partner agreement that you don't multi-stream, but I'm not sure on that. And I generally keep these separate. Like, these sort of sit-and chats have been a YouTube thing for a long time, and the upside is that then this afterwards becomes a video that people can watch or listen to while they're painting and hobbying later on. So it's almost a little bit like a podcast, except it's kind of, it's just me, sort of, which is kind of boring. Whereas the Twitch stuff that I'm doing is generally me actually hobbying and also talking and stuff like that and everything, obviously. But I'm also working on a project and it's all that kind of stuff. Or every once in a great while, some video game shenanigans. Question for airbrush people. Anyone got a place to buy Stylorez primer that doesn't charge a lot for shipping? I guess it depends on where you live. Like if you're overseas, then I don't know. Stylorez being an American company, if you're, let's say, in the UK or something like that, or in Europe, you might be able to see if either Element or Wayland might, carry it. I don't know, though. Got the Blackstone Fortress. Got the Blackstone Fortress Chaos Cultist this week to add to my burgeoning cult. Going to be sick. Yeah, those models are really cool. I like the Blackstone Fortress models a lot. Ever think about texturing tank models, adding weld lines? I mean, honestly, you could probably do it with... I was thinking about that recently. I was working on Night Haunts, who are nothing like tanks, as it turns out, but very frequently they have a big gap that runs down the middle of because they go together like two halves, and then they just have this big stupid gap that runs down the middle of the back of their ghost outfit, and so I was filling it with Vallejo plastic putty, and I was really globbing it in there because even the Vallejo plastic putty, when it dries, it shrinks, and then it just, but you could, as I was doing it, I was kind of like kind of moving it along, but also kind of up and down, sort of poking it. And to my mind's eye, it looked a little bit like like a welding bead or a welding seam or whatever. So you could potentially use that. You need the stuff with a longer applicator, like they make the plastic putty comes in a tube. You can also get it like in a squeeze bottle, kind of like paints, but this is like in more of a really tiny toothpaste tube, sort of, and then it has this longer, not needle, it's plastic, but it's still a longer applicator. And I bet you could maybe fake some welding lines that way. That'd be kind of cool. Jesse Daniel, morning from wet Milwaukee. Yeah, it rained here, but no, it's stopped. And I think it's supposed to not rain much of the rest of the day. Hey Adam, do you know why GW insists on staggered releases of faction codexes? I'm a new player, and it seems to be one significant factor that's detrimental to the health of the game. They can't produce all the books at once. It's impossible. They only have so many people who work there. Each of those books takes maybe a year to produce. Like they've been working on 9th edition probably for the last 3 years. Probably from the time that 8th edition dropped, they started working immediately on 9th edition, and that's just the way these things work. And I've had a bunch of people ask me recently, well, why don't they just release all the codexes at once? It's not possible. They can't do it. Like right now, like the next probably the next 4 codices are done, printed somewhere, maybe on a boat, maybe already in a warehouse, but the next ones are in final proofreading, in final, whatever. It's not possible for them to produce 25 codices. How many different books are there, including the supplements and all that stuff? Like there's a ton of books. It's just not possible for them to crank them all out at once. If you want a game where all the army lists, for the most part, or the majority of them, all come out at once, that's what Kill Team is, and to some degree, like Warcry and stuff like that is for. Yeah, or, frankly, even Age of Sigmar, because you can get all the stuff for free. You can get all the War Scrolls for free if you want to go that direction. So, yeah, it's just not possible for them to do. I mean, they did it with the 8th edition when they came out with the indices, whatever. But those didn't have any of the fluff or anything. It was just like, here's a list of stats, boom. And they just dumped a bunch of books. And I'm sure that was a giant pain in the rear. And then as it was, then they already had to start, cranking out actual codex books for each one of those. So yeah. Let's see here. I have a question. Is priming white minis still on sprues? Terrible idea. I want to catch all the little details in my Skitarii, but I'm afraid it'll be impossible when they are glued together. I don't like painting or even priming on sprues. I mean, I know with the Skitarii, they've got those cloaks, and the concern is like, well, I won't be able to get paint up inside the cloak. I'm a big fan of not painting stuff I can't see. So if I'm going to put the model together, it depends, I guess. Like, I did just recently on Twitch, I was working on these 3 kind of fantasy models that are from this Kickstarter from Monkstone. And there's this ogre witch, and she has a shield. And it was very simple for me to not attach the arm and to paint it separately. If it's not easy, then I have a tendency not to do it. But the benefit is this was a very easy thing for me to keep off separately and add later, and then I could paint underneath the shield a little bit easier. But like I've painted, some Skitarii in the past. I've just primed them black, and then it just gets dark and shadowy up underneath their cloak and stuff like that. But yeah, I rarely ever prime anything white. I did just do 2 Mirmorn Banshees from the Night Haunts for a Warcry thing, and those I had to prime white, and that's the first models I can think of me priming white in years and years and years. So yeah. Can't they just make a core book like Kill Team with the release and then release full in-depth codex? Well, no, because it would be so many. It would make the current core book for 40K twice as thick. It would be seriously probably 2.5 inches thick. So yeah, that's not going to be the case. Hey Zambies, how you doing? Let's see here. Dragonfall. Played first two Crusade games on Friday. Very different from match play, but felt streamlined up until the points tallying. Yeah, I could see the points tallying thing be. I mean, like, the in-betweeny bits of any kind of campaign-style game are a lot more than you're used to, say, with match play. You know, like if you're playing a campaign of Necromunda, you're playing a campaign of anything, Planet 28, Star Breach, that in between bits, even Kill Team, that in between part, like we finished this game and now we're preparing for the next game, maybe next time that we get together, or maybe we're going to play them back to back. That's fine, but there's a bunch of like book work that kind of has to happen in between there to get your folks leveled up or whatever. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. Like you have a bunch of book work that kind of happens between sessions generally. Still trying to convince my brother-in-law to buy the Kill Team core rules. It's a good book. It's very good. Excuse me. Let's see. I recommend assembling Skitarii without the arms and the backpacks, then priming the pieces. I mean, that may give it a work. That may do the job. Yeah, like I said, I'm not concerned. Like, there are a lot of people out there who will keep the guns off their Space Marines because they want to paint the big eagle thing on their chest or whatever, like a different color and all that jazz. I figure, excuse me, I figure for the normal folks, the normal Space Marines who are not sergeants or anything, they're just the regular, ground pounders. I look at them as being probably, like, I generally just don't paint those eagles. I make them so that they are a three-dimensional, thing on their armor, but if their armor is blue or red or green or whatever, well, it's just, if you're a sergeant and you're fancy, well then, you're going to give me some, thank you, dear. Thank you. If you're a sergeant or something or fancy, then maybe you get a fancy golden eagle on your chest. But it's also because if you're a sergeant, you're probably holding like a, a sword or a stick that you found in this hand and a gun in that hand, and then I can get at the chest a little bit easier to paint the eagle. So yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to make every single piece look like a golden demon, then you gotta, probably do a lot of sub-assemblies and all that stuff. But if you're trying to get models on the table, sub-assemblies can slow you down. In some situations, not so much. When I did my Chaos Warriors, they got those huge honking shields, but they attach really easily just at one little point on the model. So it was actually quite simple for me to keep the shields separate. It would have made it a much more big pain in the butt to keep those shields on them and try to paint underneath those shields and stuff a little bit. Yeah, so if it's difficult, don't do it, I guess is my opinion. Kelly asks, Adam, what have you heard about Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion? I don't know a lot about Gloomhaven, but I did paint the 4 miniatures for a stream that I did for the folks for Board Game Geek. So I did a very quick, like a quick paint kind of stream for one of their virtual conventions. I forget which one was it. Was it them working with Gen Con? San Diego Comic-Con? It was one of those that I did like a bunch of Twitch streaming, and people came from that convention, that virtual convention, to watch. And so I was doing board game stuff instead of like normal war game stuff. So the miniatures, 3 of the miniatures were really cool. One of them I didn't like. So yeah. Hello from Japan, Uncle Adam. Wish more games have one rule book to provide all the necessary rules, like Kill Team and Kings of War, and we don't need to pay for the other stuff. I mean, yeah, the issue is, to some degree, is that you don't get... Carlson is having a conniption for some reason. You don't get all the fluff then. Like, if you're just looking for stats, you just get stats. That's cool. Like, if you look at the Kill Team book, it's stats. You might get a little bit of fluff like in the Kings of War book, but the thing that they're doing with 40K, and this is a choice that you make if you like to play 40K, is that you're probably a bit more into the lore and all that kind of stuff, so you want a book for your faction. It's not just like, here's the stats, knock yourself out. And so they put in a ton of actual background and information and lore about each potential unit and all that kind of stuff, and it's really kind of interesting. So, but yeah, I also enjoy games where I just have one book. You know what I mean? Like Necromunda was kind of like that, although now they're making separate books, but they're not. I don't think they're requirements per se, but they are making kind of separate books for different factions and stuff. I was wondering if you have any advice about flying with minis. I have a trip coming up, and I have some sisters that I'm making as a gift for a friend I'm visiting. I mean, if it's just a few models, you should probably be able to keep them like in your normal luggage, maybe your checked luggage. And if they're plastic, they should be also pretty resilient. You know what I mean? Like you could wrap them in stuff, or you could get some foam maybe or something like that. If they're metal miniatures, and if they're in your carry-on, they will probably want you to open your carry-on to see what they are. Not always. One time I was flying out to Utah for the, for Valhalla in the fall, and I had my carry-on was a Battle Foam 432 bag, which is specifically designed to be just the size for carry-on. And I had a Nurgle 40K army in there, or a good portion of it, not all of it, but a good portion of it. And I had some other stuff, I think, as well. And that they wanted to open up, and they didn't care about the models at all. Most were plastic, but some were metal because they were older, like plague marines. What they were really interested in was the book, because I had my codex in there, and also the open war cards in that deck of cards. And I think, and I don't know this for sure, if any of you work for the TSA or know a lot about X-rays, back me up on this. I think it's because the cards and those books, because the paper is such high quality, when you get really high quality, like glossy, like nice paper, it has a high clay content. And I think when there's a high clay content, I think that, and especially when you stack a bunch of pieces of paper or a bunch of cards, I think the X-ray can't see through it anymore. Or it's difficult. So they're looking at it as it goes by in the X-ray, and they see all these weird shapes of these different, chaos creatures and stuff like that. But then they see this block that is just boom, like it's either black or white or whatever, I don't know. And so they will open up, like, because they literally open up and like went through the pages on the codex, and they open up the box of cards, and because I was going to keep, like, I don't know, a razor blade in there or something. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. So that's kind of the way that works. But otherwise, yeah, it's not too bad to fly with them. If you're going to fly with a whole bunch, you probably want to get some sort of like nice case or something like that. I know that some of the people that would come overseas from, like the UK and things like that, and Germany for the Valhalla retreat in Utah. I know one guy, Michael. He had one of those big, huge hard cases from like Battle Foam. That's like, like it's not just like a normal, like the kind of the slightly softer sided case, but it's like a big hard plastic with big, those, whatever, not clamps, whatever those things, the big clasps and all that kind of stuff. And that obviously has to be checked, but it was also massive. But it saved all of his stuff. Let's see here. I opened up the Space Marine Codex last night and found myself reading the lore more than the stats. I mean, that's kind of why they do that. I know, at least I think it was in 8th edition. It was either 8th or 7th edition. They did make, at one point, if you went on to like the iBooks store or iTunes bookstore or whatever the heck the marketing people have called it nowadays over on Apple, because I've got a lot of iOS stuff, my phone and my iPads. You could buy the enhanced versions of the codex, which are actually kind of cool. Like, because then you can click on a thing, like it'll talk about a plasma pistol. You click on it, it'll pop a little box to tell you the stats of the plasma pistol, so you don't have to like scroll through the book until you find the plasma pistol page. And it's got little stuff like that, which is very nice. Anyway, they also make at least back in the day, they also made what they called a gamer edition, which was a cheaper version of the digital book and was literally just the stats. No fluff, none of that stuff, any of that jazz. It was just like the section at the back of the book, basically, where they start showing you the data sheets and then like the points. Although I think it was all back then that everything was, I think, all stuck together into one. So it was interesting. Warcry now in separate books. I'm thinking maybe Kill Team is going to go the same route. See the reveal teaser by GW yesterday. I didn't watch the teaser because I slept through it. But I watched the videos and stuff and looked at the Warhammer community page thing later. So yeah, for Warcry, they're going to be coming out with 4 books, one for each of the Grand Alliances, which I feel is probably going to be kind of like, almost going to take place of the cards, which I'm of a couple different minds with. Number one, the cards were fine. I like the cards just fine. They're great. The fact that they were seemingly limited edition, and like once they were gone, doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm not a business person. Now they're saying, hey, if you just want to buy the Death book, it'll have all the card data, basically, for all of the Death Army stuff, plus a bunch of other junk, which is cool. And You know, I guess, sure, why not? Um, I don't know if they'll do that for Kill Team. I kind of doubt it. I don't know that they would go down that road to make a book, because it, like, they'd have to make like an order. Well, not order. What would they call them? Imperium, Xenos, Chaos. That would be about it, I guess. I don't know. Is that anyway? So yeah, it's a possibility, but I don't know. Cards and stacks of paper, especially if it's in sleeves, look really weird on X-ray. So I get checked on my Magic cards recently. Well, again, Magic cards, I think, also have pretty high clay content in the card itself. So yeah. X-ray machines see them as a block of limestone. Ooh, that's weird. I've had TSA check my RPG books before too. Yeah, I did too. I was carrying on a backpack, and I had I think a D&D book in there that I was reading, and like, I think 5th edition Player's Handbook. I think that's the only D&D book that I currently own. That's like the newer stuff, and yeah, it was. They pulled that out and looked at it. I forgot to check if my new codexes have the code for the app. The Space Marine and the Necron codex that I got had a code. It's like on the inside back cover, and then you punch that in, and then I guess it works in the 40K app, or it does the stats, or I don't know, something like that. It's not like you get a digital version of the book. It's just that it puts all the stats and all the stuff, and it's accessible through the 40K app, which I will be very honest, I still have not downloaded, and I don't know if I will. But yeah. Now, if the only way, like, if they've decided that they're not going to sell the codices through, like, the Apple Store and the Google Play bookstore or whatever, and all that kind of stuff, and you can't get the digital versions like that, and the only way you can get them is through their app, then I'm dubious. I guess I should look into it. I just don't want to too much. I don't know. I've not heard great things about the app, unfortunately. I really liked the Age of Sigmar app. Hello, Adam. I'd just like to say thank you for all the advice and videos over the years. It really helped me get into the hobby. I'm almost done painting my Thousand Suns kill team. Nice. There's a part of me that still wants to do a Thousand Suns kill team, because I've never painted Thousand Suns before, and I think it would be kind of fun. Battlescribe app still confuses me. Is there a good instruction, perhaps Tabletop Minions instruction? I don't quite understand the Battlescribe app. I use it. Unfortunately, it's the best thing out there, and I don't want to take anything away from the people who make it, or the people who make the data sets and all that kind of stuff. But as a person who works in user experience and user interface, I am flummoxed by that app more often than not. I just don't understand the decisions that get made on how things interact and why. And like, I've learned it kinda, but it's literally through trial and error. It's the weirdest app out there. And then of course the PC version of it is, again, completely different and also confusing as hell. So I don't know why it is that way. The reason that I think that they're kind of the only game in town is because nobody wants to pay for it either. Like, I pay for Battlescribe because I use it, and it gets rid of the ads. Those are two things. Like, if I want to help support the app, because I think that it's, as weird as it is, it's the best thing in town. And also, if I can get rid of ads, I will generally, and if it's not too expensive, I will generally do that. I used to use this weather app that I really enjoyed, and you paid like $2 a year to get rid of the ads, and it was great. And that was literally the only difference. And then recently they're like, hey, we got bought by somebody else, and now it's like $20 a year to get rid of the ads. And I was like, no, thank you. And so I went to a different weather app, which I paid for up front. It's like $4, and I'm cool. So I will buy apps. Don't get me wrong. But most people won't. As a person, again, like, I work for a company. We make apps. We know the numbers. Most, like 99.2% or something like that, people won't pay for apps. So I understand that that's why nobody wants to go and take on Battlescribe to some degree and do something better, because there's no money in it. There's not, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a bummer, but that's how it works. Let's see here. New reveal at 1915 from GW on Warcry. Yeah, they're doing a Sunday reveal. 1915, is that what is that? Is that where 1950? 1950 is like 7 p.m. 7 quarter after 7, but I don't know if that's GMT. Is it? I don't know. Anyway, are they also coming out with the Tome of Champions 2020 in addition to the Grand Alliance books? I sure hope not. I bet they are. I'm sure that they're doing that. I'm sure that there's going to be coming another new. The hell's the Kill Team one? Kill Team Annual. Like, they'll keep making those. So I would be very surprised if they decided to not make a Tome of Champions 2020. I'm sure that they will. I keep hearing people say that the Warhammer 40k app is not worth the money, and I don't understand why. Doesn't it have all the rules and keeps you from having to buy all the books? Oh God, no. No. That's not how it works at all. No. I mean, if it was like, what is it, $3 a year, $3 a month or something like that? If it was $3 a month and you never had to buy any codices anymore, that would be worth it. Absolutely. Yeah, but no, that's not how it works at all. It's supposed to be a list builder, and from what I understand, the list building thing is still not working. Again, this is the reason no one's taking on Battlescribe, is because it's hard to do, frankly. And even GW is not really particularly making the list building work, I guess, from what I understand. App development's a real pain in the butt, to be honest with you. And it gets worse every year, mainly because of the companies that hold the purse strings, companies that hold the purse strings and the companies that hold the reins of the app stores. Just the way it works. When we bring back Game 4, it will be web-based. And it will be designed for mobile as well, so you can use it mobile web, but we're not going to do the app thing anymore for Game 4, because it's just too much of a giant pain in the butt to change anything. And web is completely the opposite end of that spectrum. Apps, giant pain in the butt to change anything. Web, literally give me a minute and I can change it. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's interesting. Cards are better to play with. Books are easier to stock, sell, and keep in production. Yeah, that's true. Saw the new Kill Team announcement and thought of you immediately. I don't play Kill Team, but I was excited for you. Well, thank you very much. I mean, there wasn't much there. It was literally just like, hey, we're going to have something with flayed ones, plastic flayed ones, which I'm looking forward to plastic flayed ones quite a bit. And there will also probably be Assault Primaris involved. So is it going to be another starter box? Maybe. It's potential, I guess. Okay, so here's the thing. They've given it a name. It's called, what, like Pariah Nexus or something like that. Coming to the Pariah Nexus. So I don't know if it's... I'm just looking at the video, sorry. And now I've lost all my windows. But, oops, that's not the window that I want. So I just don't know if they're going to be coming up with a new... Windows. I don't know if they're just making a new starter box, kind of like they did with the one with the Space Wolves and the Tau, and then a little bit of terrain. Maybe they'll make a new starter box, again, the third one, which will have plastic flayed ones, Assault Marines, and, again, a little bit of terrain. Or they might, I don't want to say make it Space Hulk, but they might make it a little bit like Space Hulk. They might possibly make it still Kill Team, but you might have your, Assault Primaris and then your flayed ones, and then not have like 3-dimensional terrain, but maybe 2-dimensional terrain, maybe hallway tiles and stuff like that, kind of like if you look at Space Hulk. So it wouldn't be Space Hulk, but it would be using the Kill Team rules in a Space Hulky kind of way with modular, potentially, things. I don't know. Or they might just make it a big board, kind of like Kill Team Arena again, or like the upcoming maybe Catacombs, which is just going to be on a big board, which will be kind of boring. I don't think that it will be Kill Team 2.0. If they make a Kill Team 2.0, it would probably either come out Well, it's very possible that Kill Team 2.0, if they're following any kind of schedule, is probably this summer, because this version of Kill Team came out in 2018 summer, so this would be 2021, so it'd be 3 years. And these days they seem to be on a roughly 3-year cycle. So that's a potential. This is, like, again, I'm making all this up. I'm just guessing from like the ideas that I've been bubbling around in my grape. But that's the only thing I can think of. Now, the downside is that, like, if you don't buy the box set, then how do you get stats for Flayed Ones and Assault Primaris? Because I want Assault Primaris in Kill Team. I want Flayed Ones. Well, Flayed Ones are already in Kill Team, so that doesn't matter. It would be Assault Primaris, really, that would be the interesting thing. Most likely, Assault Primaris will get dumped into Kill Team Annual 2020, which makes sense, and I understand that. But, I don't know. We'll see. I don't like the... Oh, gosh, everything moved. Someone said something about the UX for Battlescribe. Battlescribe is a mess. 40k app is worst. The only game app so far that works amazing is the Malifaux 3rd Edition app. I heard great things about the app for War Machine. The War Machine players love that app, from what I understand. Let me see here. People talking about apps, TSA agents, cards are better to play with. I don't like the Battlescribe UX either, but for iOS there isn't many other choices. I just tried the desktop app and it's a lot easier to use. I think it's still weird, but it is easier to use probably than the web app. That makes sense. People are saying that it's actually going to happen in the year 1915. That's going to be hard. 1915 Europe, so that's 1815 GMT. Right now it is carry the 7. I don't know what time that is. Anyway, it's fine. Hard to fan source because you're relying on passion to keep it running. Yeah, that's also very true. And they can't monetize it because then they'll get sued. So yeah, it's really weird. It's very weird. I believe our peak was in like 1984 or 1985 in the US, and it started... I don't know, that was a response to somebody else. Sorry, I don't know what that was about. Let's see. I have Indominus Necrons and got a used Kill Team rulebook to play. Should I also get the starter box when there's something new in the horizon? I mean, that's a choice that you'd need to make. If you've got some Necrons and you get the core book, that's literally all you need to play. Well, you probably obviously want a board to play on and terrain and stuff like that, but you don't need a board. You could just set up an area that's roughly 22 by 30-ish. And if you already have terrain for other games or for whatever, or if you want to build some cool terrain, you could do that. But that's the thing that's nice about Kill Team I like, that you basically just need the core book, and then you just need some models, and not too many models. That's another thing that I like about skirmish games in general, is not too many models. Let's see. With the web, then you're reliant on a stable, constant connection. I'd much rather have an offline list builder, especially in China. Well, that's true. I can see that. UX UI was always pretty slick on Game 4. Well, thank you. Looking forward to see what direction it goes post-apocalypse. Well, yeah, same here. Got a Space Hulk vibe on that Kill Team trailer. See, that's why I'm thinking that a little bit, is because it does have a bit of a Kill Team or Space Hulky kind of vibe. So, like, I would love a Kill Team game or a Kill Team box that came with some models and also came with modular, like, hallway tiles, kind of like Space Hulk. I mean, that would be a fun Kill Team game, I think. As opposed to just like, oh, it's a 22 by 30 and, you know, like Arena. Like, I just didn't... And again, it's partially because I'm not a competitive player, but I just didn't like Arena. If I'm going to go 2D, then I want hallways and rooms that I can put together modularly like Space Hulk. If we're not going to do that, if it's going to be not that, but a big board, then I want to have buildings and height and walkways to crawl around on and crap like that. That's me. The plastic flayed ones have killer looking sculpts, pun intended. Yeah, I made my own flayed ones for Kill Team. Just kit bashed a bunch of like warriors, but I do want the new ones. They're pretty cool. Let's see here. I loved Game 4. I wish I lived in a bigger town because there was no game store and no one else to use it within 50 miles. That was, in certain parts of the country / world, that is an issue, and we do want to bring it back. Like I said, right now we're the Game 4 app is hibernating is the term we're using because COVID. Someone yesterday in the Patreon private chat that I did on it said that there should just be a T-shirt that just says "because COVID," because that seems to be the answer to a lot of things these days. Where you're like, well, then I was going to do that, but COVID. So yeah. Adam, keep holding off on buying new Necron models until the flayed ones come out. I was honestly going to buy the new Heavy Destroyer because he is chunky and I love him. I don't know what for. I was just going to buy him and maybe use him for other games. But I do that new Heavy Destroyer or whatever he's called. He's got a first name too, like a something Heavy Destroyer. I'm just going to call him Heavy D. He's cool. He's chunky, so I like that. Oh, sorry. Did the video play through the? I apologize. Sorry about that. I'm just coming across the chat now where that happened. Sorry. Yeah, I just didn't. Sorry about that. Is this live? Yes, it is. Well, live-ish. I'm behind in the chat, but basically, yes, it's live. Let's see here. Slim chance might be the start of a new edition since most Kill Team stuff is out of print. Well, the core book I don't think is out of print, is it? Do they still sell Space Hulk? No, I don't think so. Like, I've seen it at some local stores, but I think that they're just copies that they've never quite moved yet. Or maybe they've been like, oh, well, it's out of print now, so we'll raise the price. And the people are like, I'm not paying $300 for that. So, yeah, but that would be cool. Adam, do you think that they will make more exclusive models like they have been for all the other box sets? I hope not. That exclusive model crap drives me nuts. Let's see here. Could be worse. I like to play Starfleet Battles. If you think finding players for GW smaller games is hard, yeah. Starfleet Battles is very specific. That's true. Heavy D and the boys. Ooh, see if I got a bunch of other little small Necrons and then that one guy, then that would work. I wish there was a solo mode for 40k like they did for Age of Sigmar. Yeah, that would be smart in these unpleasant times. That would be super smart to do that. Dave the Heavy Destroyer. I don't think his name is Dave. There's like another name to it. Let me go look real quick. Because yeah, there's like, it's a... If we go Heavy... It's a Locust, Lokhust, Locust Heavy Destroyer. So his first name is Locust, like the bug. Oh, and I clicked on the wrong window again. Yeah, so I just think that model is a lot of fun. It's just very interesting. So yeah, I want to get one just basically to build and paint, and then maybe use in games, like I said, like Planet 28, stuff like that. I don't see myself... I've been on the fence lately about whether I would try to play Crusade in 9th edition at a combat patrol army size, which is 500 points / 25 power. I don't see that happening. Because I don't know who I would play with. I don't know anybody else around me who's interested in playing Crusade. So, yeah, it probably won't happen. I'll still play plenty of other stuff. I just don't see myself. I was on the fence for a while going, well, but I got to be honest also, looking through the book, and I read this article yesterday on Bell of Lost Souls, of all places, which I don't frequently go to these days too much because very frequently it crashes my phone because of all the ads. Yeah, I had a real spate of like going there and then like pop-ups and then everything, So anyway, there was an article written by... His name is Pimpcron, which you got to change that name. It's just not it's just not cool anymore. Frankly, I'm sorry, but it's like pimp is a bad. It's the sex trafficking. It's just not great. Anyway, the article was quite good because the article talked about how 9th edition is not really aimed too much at filthy casuals like myself, because it has gotten really in-depth. Like, some people complained when 8th edition came along because they're like, oh, they streamlined it way too much after 7th. And now it seems as if it's swung the other way again in ninth. I mean, just looking at the new codices that have come out, the Space Marines and the Necrons, like the Necron codices, things have changed in there. Like, reanimation protocols used to be, oh, these guys died? Roll a 5 up. And then they're not dead. And now it's like a whole extra bunch of charts and things that has to happen and all this kind of stuff. And that's kind of across both codices. Like I mentioned this even a little bit when I talked about the codices a little bit when I first got them. In the past, I've like opened up, since I started playing in 5th, I'd open up a codex for any army and I could be like, oh yeah, I see what's going on here. Okay, sure, And I'm not saying that I can see the matrix and know like the best build just by flipping through the book, but I go, oh yeah, this is this and this is that. When I look at these new books, I'm like, I don't even know what the heck this is for. Like, what's this part, I mean, they've added so much extra stuff to them. Secondary objectives and this and that and all that kind of stuff. And so all of those things together have kind of made it so that I don't see myself playing even Crusade, probably, going forward in 9th edition. Still, loving Kill Team, loving Warcry, loving even Age of Sigmar, stuff like that. But I feel like I've gotten, I don't want to say priced out. It's not priced out of 40K. I've gotten, I don't know, there's just too many rules. It's just too much at this point, and it's just not my thing. I'll keep buying models because I love the models, don't get me wrong. So there you go. Nick the Destroyer Ramondo. I could see that, sure. Well, I mean, he hasn't destroyed anything in a long time. He's just been basically sitting there. Again, COVID, it's not been a lot of live shows and stuff like that, so the cello hasn't gone a lot of places lately. Locust are the blaster destroyers, Scorpek are the stabby ones, and Ophidian are the snaky stabby ones. Ooh, there you go. They're a straight replacement for the classic Necron destroyers. I like the Necron destroyers fine, but this chonky boy, I like him a lot more. Do you think that the new kill team? Do you think in this new kill team thing they will update the stats of the new models, or will kill team always have 1 wound Marines and T4 Immortals? Well, that's a good question. If anything, they would probably update it in the next Kill Team Annual if they've decided to do that. I think it's going to be real difficult for them to decide to just, all of a sudden, normal TAC Marines are 2 wounds. That, I mean, I don't know. Because that seems like it's a big point change. It seems like it was a decent enough change that they basically waited until 9th edition came along before they did it. If they do that for Kill Team, it's going to be a big shake up. Like, you can't keep them the same points, obviously. There's a lot of different numbers kind of going on behind the scenes there. Hey, Adam, did you paint any Primarchs other than Mortarion? I haven't painted any of the Primarchs. I did not do Mortarion. I did... I painted Typhus, the old one, not the new one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the old one I painted. Let's see here. I expected a lot more lore for all the new Necrons in that codex, especially given the price. I mean, it's surprisingly, like, if you watch the video, it's half the thickness, so it's of the Space Marine codex. Now, admittedly, there's a lot more stuff in there's just a lot more units in the Space Marine army. There's so many. It just goes on for pages and pages and pages and pages of different units. There's like 26 pages of just lieutenants, just Primaris lieutenants. All right, that's not true. That's an over-exaggeration. But still, there's a lot of lieutenants. Let's see. The new reanimation protocol isn't that complicated. When a model dies, and you get a 6, and it's a Tuesday, and the moon is in the 8th trimester, and the small man who lives in a book is wearing his green jumper, that seems pretty clear. Complexed out. That's not a bad term. I think you're right. I just got my brain wrapped around all the dynamics of secondary objectives to play Crusade, which has 0 secondary and only a single agenda. Yeah, see, that's the thing, too, is that the secondary objective's true. You don't really have those, particularly in Crusade, from what I understand, so there's that, but yeah. When people said they didn't like universal special rules, the problem was finding where the rules were, and no one said to give them all different names. I liked the USRs, and I always knew where they were. They were like on page, I don't know, 44 or something like that at the time, and so it was pretty simple for me to be like, oh, yeah, I didn't like that. Or I did like that. I liked the USRs. I missed the USRs. Because, yeah, now they're just spread across all kinds of different books, and they will have, like, two USRs that are nearly the same thing, but they have two different names so that they fit the flavor of the specific faction, I guess. Whatever. Respect for the GW designers, but the new flayed ones don't look creepy enough. I think it depends on how you paint them, frankly. I like them. I want more gore and skin. Well, a lot of blood for the blood god. You can make the gore happen. I did do the kit bashing, like I said, on mine, and I do like the new ones a little bit better, I think. And you could add your own extra green stuff to make more skin and put it on there. I made a video about how to make green stuff super, super crazy thin and not have to use all kinds of weird lubricants and such. You should check that out on the YouTube is the term I'm looking for in my head right now. How many people do you think are actually playing 9th edition, considering the pandemic taking place and potentially be for this foreseeable future? Do you think skirmish games will be more of a push? I do think that is... You're definitely seeing an expansion in skirmish games. Very much so. The competitive folks are going to keep playing generally 40K, I think. And Age of Sigmar. But, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It's that's a good question. I mean, right now, I know that there are people that are playing. Definitely, I watched actually a little bit on Twitch last night. A little bit, some people playing online with Tabletop Simulator. Yeah, but and obviously there's not any big tournaments or anything going on. Well, that's not completely true. I did actually a couple weeks ago see a tournament going on in like Kansas or Kentucky or someplace, and there was like 100 people at this thing. I was just thinking to myself, and they were like showing like Top Table or whatever on Twitch, and both of the guys were wearing masks and stuff, but still, I was just like, I wouldn't do that. But yeah. New Space Hulk on Steam. We play with our own corridors made with chipboard, original terrain for interesting. We use blip markers instead of actual models. Surprising. Sure, yeah. Space Hulk is cool. I didn't get a chance to play 8th edition. One day they announced 9th. Phew, that was a quick 3 years. Yeah, no. Time will fly, that's for sure. You have agendas in Crusade, which are kind of like secondary objectives. Yeah, that's true. If you want your own flayed ones, just buy recruit boxes and put milliput on warriors like the rest of us are. Well, they're going to, like I said, new warriors, new flayed ones are coming out, plastic ones, so that'll be fun. I played 40K back in 2004 and stopped because of the amount of rules. Planet 28 is enough for my simple mind. Yeah, I like Planet 28 a lot. I'm a big fan. It's like 16 pages, including the cover. So yeah, I do dig it. And they've got some expansions, but you can choose to use them or not. That's the thing. I like games where it's like, hey, there's this core book, boom. And then there's an expansion, which you don't have to use if you don't want to. That's why it's an expansion and not an addition, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's not the right terminology, but you know. Midwinter Minis did a good vid on making gore and viscera for flayed ones with PVA and superglue. I took a class from Michelle Farnsworth at Adepticon, 4 years ago? Some time ago. And it was all about, like, blood, pus, gore. I swear to God it was 4 things? I don't know. Anyway, the trick to making, like, those, like, almost like saliva and just little drippy things hanging off of, like, a monster's mouth and whatnot is to use this glue called Uhu glue, which is spelled U-H-U. But the problem is that the American version of it doesn't do the job. You have to buy the overseas version. The American version has been nerfed because of chemicals or something, and so you have to try to get the overseas version of it. And then it comes in a tube, and you put it on like your thumb, and then you just do this for a while until it starts to make little strings. Like you're like basically just trying to glue your fingers together, and you're just kind of spreading it apart, and then you get these little strings. Then you try to clip the little strings, and then you take that with a tweezers or whatever and glue it onto like the monster's like lip or whatever, and it looks awesome. It is a pain in the butt. Just, you know, so if you're going for a golden demon, that's the pro strat. If you're just trying to make dudes look cool on tabletop, you can do it. You can use, but it's a lot of work. But it is cool, and I can't think of another way to make weird drippy saliva crap coming off of a monster's mouth. You know, so there's that. Blood Bowl in space, anyone? Tyler, that game is called Dreadball, and it's made by Mantic. And so if you're looking for sci-fi Blood Bowl, sort of, Dread Ball is the way to go. Let's see here. I also haven't been keeping up with 40k, also because it seems like my normal Marines are going the way of the Dodo. Converting my Marines used to be Vor the Maelstrom. I remember Vor the Maelstrom. Yeah, Vor the Maelstrom was cool. I don't know that the normal Marines are going the way of the Dodo. The normal Marines just all of a sudden got bumped up to 2 wounds in 9th edition. So your normal attack Marines who are non-Primaris are now basically just as powerful as Primaris, except that their gun is a little bit less powerful. But they're 2 wounds now instead of 1, which they always probably should have been, because the fact that a normal Space Marine, TAC Marine, had the same amount of wounds as a Guardsman always was weird to me, frankly. So yeah, TAC Marines now in 9th edition are 2 wound. So there you go. Let's see here. For GW to make expansions that are optional, they would have to make a rule set that wasn't dysfunctional. I don't think that's true. I mean, it's a good idea to make a rule set that's not dysfunctional. But like Kill Team, we play the core rules all the time. We don't bother with commanders. We don't bother. Well, the group that I play with, the only thing that we use from the Elites book is we like to use the specific faction like benefits. Like, oh, those guys are Dark Angels, well then they get this. Those guys are Evil Sons, and then they get like this extra little thing. So we use that from those books, but otherwise we don't use any of the rest of the stuff from Elites. We don't play usually. Well, I did play a couple of games of Elites against my friends Custodes. That was about it. But yeah, otherwise, no, we just normally just play the normal core book. And that's the thing, is you get the choice. Uhu and Kinder Eggs. I don't know what we're talking about there, sorry. I mean, I know what Uhu is, and I know what Kinder Eggs are. Been playing a lot of War Crisis, Patrick. Luckily, both my sons like to play. Can't wait for Catacombs. Nice. Uhu is owl in German. Kind of sounds like what an owl says. If you want the right Uhu, it needs to say made in Thailand on the bottle. That might be the right stuff then. Yeah, because the American formula doesn't do this. When you just do this, it just doesn't make the little strings, I guess. I don't know why. Fishing wire and clear glue. Yeah, that might be even, well, I don't know. It's a good question. Like, you'd have to get really, really super thin fishing wire for fishing for tiny fish. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on Blade Guard? You mean those Space Marine dudes with the skeleton on his shield? They're kind of cool looking. Otherwise, I don't know anything about them. Some of the... when they put out a non-Primaris kit, I'll think that they aren't going to be squatted. I mean, sure, they're probably not going to make any new Tactical Marines, but those molds last for a long time. I mean, they'll probably just keep cranking out the molds for a good deal longer. And I'm sure that they have warehouses full of Tactical Marines. Yeah, it'll be a very long time before they run out of those. E6000 is good for saliva for big monsters. Gloss the area first and use a toothpick. E6. Oh, yeah, E6000 glue. I've seen that before. Sure. Okay, well, it's something to try out. The new Kill Team release could combine all the previous rules. Boy, they shouldn't do that. Like, they just shouldn't combine the rules. That's just not a thing. Like, the point of keeping separate books is that you get to pick and choose. If you give me one book that has the core rules, elites, commander, a bunch of other crap, number one, that book will be $80. Which doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to buy an $80 book for that. Just thank you. So, and I'm not going to play with most of it. So keep them separate. Then I can buy one book and then ignore the other ones for the most part, and that'll be fine. Yeah. It's 1,700 hours here in the Netherlands, which is 5 p.m. military time. So in 2 hours and 15 minutes, GW do their... Okay, so that's a little after noon my time. Okay, well, that's fine. Yeah, I probably won't be able to watch that one either. I got to go over to my mom's house and fix one of her lights on the ceiling, which is not working for some reason, even though the light bulbs seem to be new. Kinder Eggs aren't banned in the U.S. anymore, though the U.S. version is slightly different. I didn't know Kinder eggs were banned in the U.S. Makes sense, probably. Any opinions on Crisis Protocol? Marvel Crisis, the Marvel game. I bought the box, the core, whatever, the starter box thing, and I own 2 more expansions. I own Venom and the Hulk because they came in my swag box from Adepticon that didn't happen. I have not yet built any of them, but I've got a couple of friends who are very good painters who say that they kind of don't like the models very much because they're hard to build and also not as high detail as they would like. That's just, again, I have not done this, but this is a couple of friends of mine who are good painters and have been working on them. That's their opinion. I do know that my local store has started carrying more of it. He had only had just the starter box, and now he's got a whole bunch of the expansion stuff and is actually getting people starting to play more in my local store. So that's cool. It's interesting. Like my local store, the 2 hottest miniature games right now are Star Wars Legion and as far as getting played, like locally and people coming in, and they're still sometimes playing a little bit in the store, which I won't, but they have been doing it a bit. Yeah, it's Marvel and Star Wars are the 2 games that are getting played the most right now. There was a 40K tournament, but otherwise casual play for 40K. I was just talking to my friend who owns the store a couple days ago, and he said that there's been 0 casual play for 40K, at least at his store. What do you have lined up next for Twitch after you finish painting your night haunts? I was thinking about that. I think I might try to do my Tyranids for Kill Team. So I built a Tyranids kind of roster quite some time ago, and then textured the bases and primed them, and they've been sitting as I've been working on their stuff. And after working with the Turbo Dork, turbo shifting, color shifty kind of paints for my night haunts, which is I'm currently in process, I'm really kind of enjoying the look. And one of the colors in there I think would work really cool for Tyranid, like the hard shell bits and stuff like that. It's going to take for lack of a better term, a buttload of masking to do this, but I am thinking about trying to use like silly putty to like mask off like the majority of the model except for the actual parts that are supposed to have this color on them, and then prime them and then color them and all that kind of stuff. So that part would not happen on stream. That part would happen just like I did with the Night Haunts right now. Like all of that color shifty paint from Turbo Dork, I did all that off stream because I had to do it in my airbrush room and stuff like that. So then I'm bringing the models in now and going, okay, here, now I'm going to paint their faces and paint their arms and their weapons and all that jazz. So yeah, that's the current. So I'm currently thinking it's probably Tyranids next. So I've watched at least 4 bat reps of that game now, and they're all pretty much put me to sleep. I don't know which game you're talking about. Sorry. Marvel Lunchbox Rainbow. Gotcha. I mean, it's a. I don't want to say it's a sports game, but it's kind of a sports game. You know what I mean? Because it's about getting objectives. Like, you're not really there to kill anybody because it's comic book characters and they don't usually get killed too much. You know what I mean? So it's more about like, I need to do this, this, and this, and yeah. I don't know. I'm interested, but I'm not. It'll probably still be a while before I bother to build and paint any of those models, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it's what it is. I was watching the terrain painting video. Post-it covering was nice, but why not just paint the terrain in pieces rather than assembled? Nice and fast, easy to dry brush, laying flat. Nah, no, I can't do it. Because then I got to glue it all together once it's painted, and then that would be a giant pain. Yeah, with terrain, I'm always going to build it first and then paint it second. It's just building terrain specifically, trying to paint it in parts like that. I mean, that piece of terrain is 3 parts. It's like a wall, and then like a flat floor. I still wouldn't do it. You know, I'd always, because the thing is too, is that generally with terrain, I'm going to use plastic cement so that it like kind of actually melts a little bit and really sticks together and never ever falls apart. and I don't want to do that when there's paint on parts that I don't want it on, and it's just, yeah, no. Also, you don't get, if I'm trying to dry brush from certain areas, you have to think a lot more. It's a bit more 4D chess to be like, wait, is this the top of the wall or the bottom? I don't know. It's just not my interest area, so I'm just gonna keep doing it my way. I'm gonna build them, and then I'm gonna paint them. Like I said, I rarely ever want to paint anything unbuilt. It just doesn't work out for me. My FLGS is pre-arranged 40K games on Saturdays. You can't just drop in due to the contact tracing, which is hard to say for me. Still, it's keeping the community going. Well, that's good. I think that's. I mean, the store people, employees, owner, whatever, managers, they're the ones in this day and age right now who have to kind of take the reins on this stuff. Like my local store that I go to, he's just, if you don't wear a mask, you can't come in the store. Just like I stopped at the store on Friday to pick up the White Dwarf, and he was out in the parking lot with someone and he was wearing a mask and she wasn't, because she wouldn't wear a mask to come into the store, and she wanted to sell some Pokemon cards or something. No, Magic cards, something. So he's like looking at him on the hood of her car. And when he came back in, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, yeah, she wouldn't wear a mask, so she couldn't come in. I'm like, okay. So, nonetheless, it's up to the store owners and the store employees and things like that to be able to potentially do these types of things, like set up specific things. Like when my local store did have a tournament, they had this whole list of rules. Obviously, everyone's got to wear a mask. If you've got any kind of fever or whatever, you can't, all this kind of stuff. He had one of them laser gun temperature things where you shoot somebody in the forehead, I guess, or whatever with a laser, and then that somehow you figure out their temperature. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how that works, but it works. Admittedly, you can still be passing it around and not know it, not have a temperature. I get that, but it's an extra precaution that you can take and stuff. And so I think he's only done one tournament since he kind of started letting gaming happen in the store again. But honestly, right now, the part of the country I live in, I personally would not let there be in-store gaming at all right now. Our numbers are crazy high, and so it's just not a good idea. Anywho, any tips on Lieutenant red and white helmet stripes? Ooh, yeah, they're hard. I don't know. I mean, if you can, I guess probably try to use some sort of there's a company called Tamiya or Tamiya, depends on who you ask, and they make like remote control cars, and they make like models and stuff. They're a Japanese company, and they also make a lot of different supplies for scale modelers and painters and stuff like that. They make a nice, real thin little masking tape that you might be able to use to do those stripes, but otherwise freehand it. That's why I generally don't do stripes, because I'm terrible at it. So, what is weird with the Silent King is that there are a lot of parts that are not keyed in, so you have to build it in different order than they say to make sure the thing align. Yeah, I looked at that model and I was like, I'm just not interested in giant honkin' like the OCR, the Bone Daddies, whatever they're called, the Bone Reapers, those guys. There's that one big honkin' model that's almost like a little mini diorama. And then there's also one for the Sisters of Battle. It's like a little mini diorama. And I'm just like, I don't want to push a mini diorama around on the table, frankly. And this Silent King thing feels almost a little bit like that to me. So, I mean, it's cool if you want to paint a diorama. That's very cool. It's neat that they make those. It's like a ready-made diorama. You usually have to kind of scratch build those to some degree. But to make it a game piece, I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's just personal opinion. Our store had to make a sign telling people to wear masks correctly or get kicked out. Yep, it's important. Our FLGS has pretty strict rules for the gaming area. Must have masks, no spectators. Terrain is left on the table, placed in a room for a week. It's working so far. Good to hear. Hi, Uncle Adam. How are you doing? Not doing too bad. I got my Kickstarter yesterday, and it's awesome. You should definitely check it out sometime for Fantasy Brawl. Yeah, I heard someone mention, was either you or somebody else mentioned that earlier. I haven't heard of it. Hey, Uncle Adam, I had my first 40K with my son, 40K game with my son yesterday. Orcs versus Dark Angels. Nice. Used many of your techniques, to get my Dark Angels done. Mainly makeup brushes to get the dry brushing quickly. Nice. Yeah, makeup brushes they are the bomb. Wisconsin is the Florida of the Midwest. Now, Moderator Matt, that's not very nice. That's not true, and it's not very nice. I mean, COVID-wise, it's a little bit true right now. But otherwise, no. Um, we don't have any alligators at all, for one thing. Let's see here. Masks are mandatory in stores in my city, but we don't have to enforce it. That's not helpful. I mean, there's the legality of it right now is a giant mess. But like, I have friends who are store owners, game stores or other types of stores, and they're basically like, I can't call the cops and say, if I tell you you have to leave because you're not wearing a mask and you don't leave, then I can call the cops, and the cops will come because you're trespassing. I guess is the way you get around that. But yeah, it's up to the store. Like, I know my local grocery store has a big honking sign out front that says you got to wear a mask. But if you just decide not to, they're actually not going to do anything about it because it's store policy, which sucks. But there it is. But if it's your own store, like my friend who owns the record store or another friend who owns the coffee shop, and you walk in without a mask, they say, get out, we're not serving you. And, they'll first tell you, hey, you need to put on a mask. Did you miss the 3 different signs on the way in? And if you say, yeah, I don't wear masks, then you say, well, we don't sell to people who don't wear masks. And then you get out. And that's just the way it works. So, For helmet stripes, draw a very thin, light pencil line to use as a guide. It will be easily erased after the paint is dried. Like with an eraser? I would think that would mess up the paint, wouldn't it? I mean, you would know better than I think they're J Solo Arts, but that sounds like it's a good tip. I would think that you wouldn't even just bother erasing. You would just paint over the pencil a little bit, but Did he already talk about Kill Team? I mean, we've been talking about Kill Team on and off a little bit here and there. So far, if you've watched the video, you know as much as I do. I have made some speculation that potentially this might be a Kill Team set that is a little standalone, and hopefully it will be actually a little bit like Space Hulk. That would be very cool, where it comes with Assault Marines and it comes with flayed ones, and then instead of three-dimensional terrain on a 22 by 30-inch board, maybe there'll be modular hallways and rooms, kind of like with Silent Death or Space Hulk. Silent Death is a different game altogether. It's spaceships, it's spaceship combat. Anyway, but yeah, we'll see. We don't really know much else about it. I don't think it'll be version 2.0 of Kill Team. I'm highly dubious of that. But it's hard to say. $170 for a monolith is crazy. It is kind of crazy. Those new Mega Gargants, or those giants, those are $195 American. So that's also kind of crazy. Yeah, I don't see myself buying those. Did I miss the discussion of the anime show reel that G-Dubs showed off yesterday? Yeah, I watched that too. And I'm like, there are certain parts of that I would watch. It's funny to me that the part that has the Eldar in it is the part that's the most anime, because those are two things I just generally have no interest in. I liked Cowboy Bebop just fine. Watched it with some friends years ago. I've tried to watch Akira twice and fallen asleep both times. I know that makes me a bad person, but I'm okay with it. I've just never been a big fan of anime. And I'm not saying that people who like it are wrong. I'm just saying it's not my jam. And then when the anime portion of it is basically Eldar, which I'm also not a big fan of, I'm like, well, geez, that makes it real simple. But some of the other parts looked kind of cool. I don't know. I mean, it depends on how they do it and whatever and all that kind of stuff. But it was anime-ish, so that's fine. Tamiya also makes some products that nobody else makes a comparable replacement for. Yeah, they make a lot of cool stuff, honestly. Yeah. Have you tried Cuttlefish Colors line of paints by Cephalopod Studios? Did you make that up? That sounds like it's made up. Cephalopod Studios and Cuttlefish Colors. I mean, those sound like they're right up my alley, I'm really enjoying them, especially the whites, not chalky at all. Also made in Peoria, Illinois. I've never heard of either of those things. I should look that up. That sounds interesting. Currently, my favorite white paint is bold titanium white from Pro Acryl. Big fan. It's spectacular. But I'm interested in Cuttlefish Colors from Cephalopod Studios. It seems like it's kind of right on the thing. Sledodon says Silent Death Heart. Yeah, Silent Death was a space combat game like you played on hex grids from this old company called Iron Crown Enterprises. My friend Peter and I used to demo it at Gen Con. We used to work for this big gaming group. We would volunteer for this big gaming group that was based out of Ottawa in Canada. And we just, but through hanging out and playing the game with those people at conventions, we somehow sort of we were the Wisconsin annex of the Ottawa Red Shirts was the name of the gaming group. They're still around today. They still run stuff at like Origins and Gen Con and whatnot. But they used to run a lot of Silent Death, and we used to help them with it a lot. It was very cool. I am extremely here for a new Kill Team box with flayed ones in the box. Yeah, like if that's the thing. Like they showed flayed ones. They showed Assault Marines. There was a dead one, at least, but Assault Primaris. So if they were even just to make a new starter with some terrain and those models in it, cool, if it's fine. If they do it where it's more like Arena, where it's all two-dimensional on a normal board, less cool, not as interested. If they do it two-dimensional, but like I said, it's modular tiles that make up hallways and stuff, kind of like Space Hulk, again, I'm interested. I think a Space Hulk version kind of Kill Team would be spectacular. So yeah, definitely interested in that, but we'll see. Depends on what you're doing. They're not intended for miniatures, but their brush paints are very decent for Gundams and other large surface area models. Yeah, and I know that some of the liquids for like pin washing, like the little panel lines and stuff like that. I know Tamiya, whatever. I should figure out which one it is, but they make a bunch of stuff. So what is the starting cost for Kill Team? If you want to get into Kill Team these days, the core book is $40, and then you could get yourself a Kill Team for $50 or less sometimes. I made a video about it back in mid to late 2018 about how to build Kill Teams for less than $50. You could watch that. And so yeah, it's literally for like the core book for $40 and a Kill Team for about $50. Boom, you could be playing. As far as what this new whatever they're doing is, nobody knows. I don't have any information on that. Any tips for applying transfers to models? The main thing to do, I've found, is there's this company that sells these two chemicals, these two little bottles. One's called Microset and one's called Microsol. There's a lot of videos about how to use those two, but they do a great job. The Microset is basically kind of a glossy sort of stuff that you paint down on the surface before you put the transfer on there. And the benefit to putting, even if you just use a regular gloss varnish, you always want to put your transfers, even on flat surfaces, you want to put transfers over a gloss. And the reason for that is because if the surface is like a matte finish, you'll put your transfer over it and it will look perfect and it'll look great until all the fluid finally actually evaporates. And then you will see tiny, tiny, tiny little microscopic air pockets underneath the transfer from where the bumpiness of the matte surface is. And then it will look frosted underneath your thing there. So if you throw it on a gloss varnish even, because it's so shiny, then the thing will stick to it better, and you won't have that frosting underneath. If you're not going to use Microset, Microsol, throw it on a gloss varnish, let it dry, slide your little thing onto there, your transfer, let it dry, then paint over it with a gloss varnish again, and then let that dry. That'll usually do the trick, but there's other things there too. Let's see. What was the something new for Kill Team? If you go onto the Warhammer community page where they talked about the preview yesterday, they showed off on Twitch. One of the things that they showed, the very end of the preview or whatever, was basically just a teaser video about something coming for Kill Team early next year, and it's going to have probably Necron flayed ones, and it looks like Assault Primaris in it, whatever it is. We don't know anything more than that, unfortunately. A Kill Team starter box that has the Zone Mortalis terrain would be really great. Also, crazy expensive, but yes. Because like if you look at the kind of Zone Mortalis terrain that they put out there for Necromunda, like that box was $290. So yeah. Warhammer said yesterday they were doing a stream today. Yeah, excuse me. It looks like in about another hour and 40 minutes there'll be another stream, I guess. I've got something stuck in my throat. I bought the book and 2 teams for under $100. That's a real good price. Yeah, definitely. Being from Tampa, Florida, I ditched the usual miniature rattle can primer and went with the Automotive Primer, and it's been 0 issues so far. Yeah, there are certain automotive primers. Duplicolor is a good brand that I've found at like auto stores. Duplicolor sandable auto primer can actually work quite well. The only downside to that, and it's not that big of a downside, is it doesn't come in as many colors as you might want. So it usually comes in black, sometimes white, sometimes gray, sometimes what they call red oxide. I've got actually a couple of cans of red oxide. When I first painted my Tau back in the day, I primed them with red oxide Duplicolor sandable auto primer. And then after that dried, then I sprayed them from above with like an orange sort of spray paint. So then they were basically kind of like highlighted like orange into darker red, because that red oxide is more, it's not maroon or burgundy, but it is a darker red. But yeah, that type of primer does work quite well, I think, for the stuff. It just doesn't come in like as many colors as, say, like, you know, the Army Painter or GW's primers even, or you know, all those other things. Let's see here. Transfers. Gloss coat first, then use microsol set where needed. Gloss coat again. Yep, that's gloss coat and then gloss coat. That's the trick. I just bought an airbrush. What booth and mask do you use or recommend? I don't have a booth. I do all my airbrushing in a little room, a little weird Harry Potter room underneath the stairs. So I don't really need a booth, because the whole room is just, it's not a booth exactly, but it's but I do wear a lot of mask. I bought it at like Harbor Freight. It's one of those where it's like a rubber thing that goes over your face like this, then it has like these two filtery things on the side, and there's a bunch of straps go on your head. That's fine. That just works out well. If the GW stream is at 19:15 UK, it's in 2 hours and 40 minutes. I don't friggin' know. Who knows when it's going to be? Let's see. I love Kill Team's activation order. Played it with a little and used something similar to the skirmish game I'm writing rules for. Played with it a little. I see. Yeah, I do like the activation scheme a lot too. I was really hoping that they were going to change up the activation in 9th edition, and they didn't. So that is a bummer. I'm tired of we roll off at the beginning of the game, and then that's the way it works the rest of the game. I think that's dumb. And I know that some people hate the other way, like with random activation, like you do it in Age of Sigmar, but I think it's just a lot more interesting. Hot take, I know. I use the red oxide for my Corn Marines. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Like a red oxide, like auto primer for berserkers. That'd be sweet. Yeah, absolutely. I might have done that with mine. I know I used a red, and I know I also used a brown wash, and then I went through and did a bunch of gold on the trim and stuff like that. But I might have actually used that same stuff on them. That's very possible. Matt says he moderates from beneath the stairs. Ooh. That's spooky. I saw a cool Tau painting vid using scratch medium. Looked really cool. I haven't heard about that. Watched a video where the guy used vinegar before moving the transfers. Worked awesome. I don't know why that would work. I hate the smell of vinegar, so I would not personally do that myself, but, you know, that's pretty cool. Where can I watch the GW stream? They stream on Twitch. If you just type Warhammer into the search doohickey, you'll probably find it, or Warhammer TV. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, they're on Twitch. That's where they do all those. If you want to watch a great movie, anime or not, please watch Your Name. I've not heard of that one. Have you ever bought a game just to own the minis? Oh, probably, yeah. I mean, to some degree, the Hellboy board game, like I bought because my wife and I are big fans of Hellboy, the comic book, and I wanted a bunch of the minis, and I thought, well, maybe someday we'll play the board game, but I don't think we're ever going to play the board game. Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure that there's other ones that I've just bought minis for I've rarely ever bought a game just for the minis, but I have bought minis from a game that I have no interest in playing because I'm going to use them for something else. That I do all the time. I mean, honestly, these days, that's kind of what I'm doing with 40K for the most part. I'll buy 40K minis knowing I'm not going to play 40K. I'll play Kill Team. I will use those minis in other games like Star Breach or Planet 28 or stuff like that. But yeah, that's basically about it. I play 40K with my 4-year-old brother. With him, we can only play the movement and shooting phase. That makes sense. He loves playing my Blood Angels and Thousand Suns. Nice. You're doing good there. Good work to get him started early. John Bruce says, agree on activation. Those more random events, the better, but I play orcs. Well, see, yeah, exactly. That makes fun, too. I think microset is basically vinegar. It's got an odor, but it doesn't come across to me as vinegar, but I can see that. Rune Wars, just for the minis. I didn't buy Rune Wars. I got a copy for free because that year at Adepticon, they just gave everybody a copy of Rune Wars. It was like the year it came out, and it wasn't even in stores yet. But if you went to Adepticon, they were just like, "Here, have a copy of Rune Wars," and it was like, it was like $100 or whatever the original starter was, because it was a big chunky box. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I did like some of the models in there, like the undead team or faction, whatever, like the skeletons and stuff like that. I thought were kind of cool, a little cartoony, but yeah, I never really did much with them. Let's see. Do I need as many tissue? People are talking about watching movies. Okay. The active ingredient in microsol is acetic acid, so yes, a few drops of vinegar and water will act as a perfectly good substitute. Nice. I bought Dark Souls game for the minis. Dark Souls. Oh, yeah. I've got a copy of that someplace as well. I think that Steamforge sent that to me, and I talked about it on one video, I think. It was one of those... because it's like a gateway game. And I think it's actually, in my opinion, it's more like a double gateway game because it's a small, very, very small skirmish kind of board game, so it sort of straddles that line. Plus, it's also a video game thing, so it'll bring in people who are interested in board gaming a little bit, also people who like video gaming. So yeah, I just haven't painted any of the models. The models are cool, but it was like, I can't think of a use for them in any of the stuff that I play currently. That's what usually draws me into actually getting models painted. More often than not is I have a use for that. I'm going to play that in this, or I'm going to do that. But there's other times where I look at models and I'm like, these are super cool. Stargrave, April 2021. That's true. Looking forward to it. A friend and I jumped back into 9th after a lot of Kill Team. Activations felt so unfair. Yeah, no, that's the thing that I like least about 40K is the fact that basically that initial roll and then whatever and all that kind of stuff. After that, it's just this is the order from now on. I just think it's dumb. I'm a big fan of they use it in Star Breach, and they also use it in Bolt Action, and that is where you have a die for every single unit in your game, and they're all the same color, same size. And your opponent does the same but in a different color, and you just dump them all into a bag, and then you shake up the bag, and you reach in and you pull out, okay, this one's a blue one, that's one of yours, and then they get to take that and activate one unit, and then you reach in the bag, and then boom, and it's a blue one again, so they get to go again, and now it's a black one, and that's one of mine, and whatever, and they go back and forth that way. And then that way you get to make some choices, because it's not saying you have to run this unit, you just get to say you get to do a unit. And if I do a bunch of units in a row, you know that you've then still got a bunch of dice still in the bag, so you know that you'll be able to catch up that way, And it's just a super smart way to do it. I can understand that. Maybe it's not great for tournaments or whatever, although I'm sure there are tournaments out there for Bolt Action. I mean, I've seen them. So I don't know that it slows things down that much. So yeah, I don't know. I just like it a lot. Kulmanir Knots, Cthulhu Death May Die, Massive Darkness, and the others, all just for the minis. My Blood Bowl teams now look insane. Oh yeah, I could see there's some pretty spooky Cthulhu Blood Bowl stuff. That'd be fun. The activation system in A Song of Ice and Fire is my favorite right now. I know the game. I mean, I know of it. I haven't played it. I don't know if I've seen a battle report. I mean, I caught part of a battle report over on Ash's channel on Guerrilla Miniature Games, but I don't know that I paid that close attention to the activation. I should check that out. Peeling dried white glue from your fingers is oddly satisfying. Yeah. It's way better than doing it with CA glue, because the CA glue just pulls off skin, which is not super helpful. I played a light game of Kill Team using dice bag activation and allowed for 2 activations per model, much like Star Breach. Yeah, nice. Star Wars Legion still is my favorite turn order mechanic. That's a pretty good one too. That's a very good point. I do like that sort of bidding thing and the cards and all that. Yeah, I think that's cool. Bring back Burning of Prospero. Those 2 sets were some of the greatest box sets ever. Betrayal of Calth was also like, it was just really good models. Like, it was like, I'm not going to play this game. I take that back. I did not buy that box. I bought some of the models on eBay. So yeah, but just because I wanted the parts for conversions and stuff. But I bought some of the like 30K style Space Marines because there was times when I was still kind of playing some 40K where I'm like, I want this Space Marine to have like a really old relic shoulder pad or something like that. And so it was like, I don't know, 25 or $30, and I bought like that 10-man squad of like the 30K Space Marines. Patrick says, in the game I'm writing, it's only 4 models per player, but there's a movement and an activation phase followed by resolution phase. Models don't die until resolution phase. Interesting. Carmen Otaku asks, is Turnip 28 related to Planet 28? No. So, and I don't know a ton about Turnip 28, but Turnip 28, from what I know, is, so the people who are into, all right, let me back way up. Back in the early 2000s, there was a game that GW put out called Inquisitor, and it was a skirmish game where it was an Inquisitor and their retinue, their assistants, bodyguards, whatever you want to call them, but retinue is the term that they use in the books generally. And so you would play and combat with, now, the weird thing about Inquisitor, there was a bunch of weird things about Inquisitor, the game. Number one is it was 54 millimeter scale, so it was twice as tall as normal miniatures, which was weird. That also means that all your terrain has to be twice as big too, which was not a great plan. Didn't sell well. Secondly, you needed to have a game master. It was a skirmish game, miniatures, but there still needed to be kind of a game master, which was also a little weird. I own a copy of the book. I actually bought it not that long ago. My local game shop, and actually not my local game shop, next city over, local game shop, had a copy that had literally been in the store since the game came out in like 2002 or 2001 or whatever. It's just been sitting there not getting sold. And so I finally bought it because I was like getting interested in the concepts, but not the actual execution of the game. So along that game's been sitting there for a long time, and a bunch of people got interested in the concepts again of the game, of Inquisitors and stuff like that, but they wanted to do a lot more kit bashing, and then the idea behind that became a movement to some degree within miniatures, which is known as Inquisitor 28, because they didn't want to do the 54 scale because it's stupid. So you started seeing people who are like trying to modify the rules of Inquisitor to be Inquisitor 28, but also make it so that maybe you didn't have to use the GM, and then just a lot of back and forth. And there was a lot of different, and some people were trying to use like Necromunda rules, but it was all this kind of stuff. So last year-ish, Nick Evans decided to make a game because he really loved all the kit bashing and cool stuff that you see in the Inquisitor 28 kind of community. And there's like Facebook stuff, and you could type in INQ28 as a hashtag into Instagram and stuff like that and see all kinds of cool junk. Anyway, he's like, I want to make a simple rule set so that I can play with these kit bash models and play these games, and that's what Planet 28 is. And there's also 28 Magazine, which you should definitely check out because it's very cool. It's a free download, it's PDF. Just type in 28 Magazine into Google, you'll find it. Anyway, it's a lot about kit bashing and making your own stuff, kind of, and doing cool things. Turnip 28 is sort of like, it's that same sort of kind of Blanchitsu kit bashing stuff, but it's more fantasy. It's like what a lot of the people who are modeling in this Turnip 28 thing are doing is they are taking like historical plastic models, like Napoleonic type stuff, and then kind of Blanchitsuing them and adding in like Age of Sigmar elements to them. So they're like kind of historical looking, but also sort of fantasy looking. For whatever reason, a lot of the models also seem to have actual like pieces of like dried grass and like weird crap coming out of their like I don't quite completely understand it, but I have seen some really interesting things. So if you just type in Turnip28 into Twitter or Instagram or even Google, you'll probably find out more about it. But it's an interesting sort of like kind of modeling movement. And some people are trying to make a game, or a couple of different sets of rules to pop up so you could play with your cool, weird Turnip28 models. I know that the guy who does Relic Blade, Sean Sutter, I guess, is kind of kicking around a rule set for Turnip28, which I assume would maybe get released free or Patreon or cheap, something like that. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of people out there who are like, I don't really care that much about the rule set. I care much more about the models, and the rule set I'll use whatever. And I'm kind of one of those. I like to make the models first and then figure out what I'm going to use them for in a lot of situations. So that's where you go. Inquisitor was awesome for the detailed background. Yeah, the book is super cool. It's just as I read it, I'm like, I would never play this. This sounds like a giant pain in the butt, especially the size thing. 54 millimeters, crazy. I strongly believe that if Inquisitor had been released in the I-28 format, it would have been massive. Oh yeah, no, if they would have made it the fact that they decided to go 54 millimeter size just didn't make any sense. If they would have made it a normal 28 millimeter size like they did the rest of their stuff, I think you're right. It would have done way better. Absolutely. Do you know any sources that converted Necromunda gangs to Kill Team? No. I mean, I've done a bunch of kit bashing with Necromunda gang stuff, but I never put any of it in Kill Team. I've just used the normal Kill Team, like normal 40k stuff for Kill Team myself. I play 40k. No, I already read that someplace. Let's see here. Initiative should be something you should be able to have. Turnip28 has strong Labyrinth vibes. Yeah, I could see that a little bit too, like Labyrinth the movie, sure. But it's like a lot of people are starting with like a base of using like actual historical plastic models and then tacking on a bunch of more slightly fantasy type of stuff. So I can get that, yeah. What do you do? Is it Planet? Oh yeah, Planet 28. Yep, there's a link there to Planet 28. Oh, no, I messed up my stuff. All right, so Inquisitor works great as source material for role-playing games, but yeah, trying to make it a skirmish game on a weird scale requiring a game master was an odd choice. Yeah, it was. It very much was. I don't know why they did that. How much replayability does Blackstone have realistically? That I don't know, because I haven't played it. I love the models, and I've built and even painted some, but I have not played the game. The order dice activation is amazing. Gates of Antares uses it too. Well, that makes sense because it's the same kind of. I mean, Gates of Antares, Bolt Action, Conflict 47. I think they're all made by roughly. They're all written by roughly the same folks. I mean, it's all Warlord, I guess. So there's that. But yeah. Let's see here. John Blanche is an old school art staffer at GW with a distinctive art style known as Blanchitsu. Yeah. So the Blanchitsu is it's a term for. So John Blanche used to do a lot of art in older GW stuff, and it was always very like there's a lot of browns in it. It was a very kind of sketchy, sort of interesting, almost sometimes slightly disturbing looking style, which fit really well for 40k back then. And then I don't know, a number of years ago, he had a column every month in White Dwarf called the Art of Blanchitsu. And it would be, instead of him drawing, it would be him painting and converting models. So he was taking GW models and then kit bashing them and doing all kinds of crazy stuff to them and then taking photography of them. And then other people started to do the same thing, and he would show those off in his art, in his column every month. And it was super cool. It was really cool. And now if you just type in Blanchitsu into like Instagram and stuff, you'll see so much stuff. And it's a lot about like, again, warm colors, a lot of brown colors, like a lot of grunge, a lot of like, but it's usually aimed more towards the sci-fi stuff, like grungy, Necromunda, everything is dirty, kind of, that sort of thing. That's sort of the Blanchitsu style. I really dig that stuff myself. I like when I'm going to do that stuff, I'm either using a lot of Agrax or Shade, or I'm just straight up using enamel washes, where you airbrush it on and then wipe off a lot of it after you give it like about 3 to 4 minutes to dry. It works really well. So Glad I was able to catch the end of the show. I'm pretty happy with how Blood Bowl and Kill Team Boxes editions are on the way. Both would be must-buys for me. Hope you're all doing good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about Blood Bowl, frankly. I mean, I own the previous version, and I honestly have played more Blitz Bowl, which is like a much smaller game from them, and you can only get it at Barnes and Noble, which is still, I get it, but if you don't, you should still be able to order it from GW as well if you want to. But I don't know, they signed some sort of business deal, and there you go. Anyway, so but yeah, I do like a lot of the Blood Bowl stuff. I like a lot of the models and stuff like that. It's just not a game that I end up playing too much. There you go. One Page Rules has Firefight. That's Kill Team more simple. Yeah, that's true. One Page Rules they've got like kind of a 40K type game. They've got an Age of Sigmar type game, and then they've got basically a Kill Team, and then not Warcry, but like a skirmish version type of game of Age of Sigmar as well. Don't know if you can mention this, but have you seen any hard plastics from Wargames Atlantic? Thinking of grognards. Yeah, I own a couple boxes. I own a box of, there was like grognards, and there was another kind of sort of sci-fi-ish one as well, and I own both of those. They're not bad models. They're the plastic is hard, but the detail is a little soft in comparison to what you're used to with, say, like 40K or Games Workshop in general. I think that's the big thing that you see the difference in, is that Games Workshop's details are very, very sharp. And other companies, frequently, they may have the same kind of quality plastic, and they may have very interesting like designs, but the details aren't as sharp, maybe, and that's kind of a thing. And I think it has to do with the way that the molds are made, honestly, because to make a very, very incredibly sharp detail, like, okay, so this guy here, right, this is I don't know what this is, some sort of Age of Sigmar dude, and to make this incredibly sharp blade on there, or anything that's kind of pokey or real pointy, if you think about the steel mold on the inside has to be the opposite of that. So to make something really, really sharp in positive, the mold has to be the negative of that, right? That's how molds work. Well, think about like the mold has to come to such an incredibly sharp point to make that really sharp thing that you poke yourself on when you're holding onto it when you're trying to paint. That's a very difficult thing to do in molds. It's much easier to make this inside of the mold be a little bit rounded because it's easier to get at and stuff like that, which is why you get models sometimes like this stuff from like these Conquest models here from Conquest Parabellum Games. Very cool, really super interesting sculpts and everything like that. But when you look at the actual sprues, there's nothing you're going to poke yourself on. Like, there's very cool sprues, and everything's neat. Let me get some of these sprues out of here real quick. So, like, there's a lot of parts and all this kind of stuff, but all the details are just a little bit more rounded, and they don't come to sharp points. And that is something that you notice when you start painting for quite a while, is you start to notice the difference. And I don't know, it's not a huge problem, but it is kind of a thing. And the Wargame exclusive, or not Wargame exclusive, Wargames Atlantic or whatever models remind me a little bit of that. Still interesting stuff. Also not heroic scale, so if you're used to heroic scale, which is generally like what you're doing with like 40K, where everybody's wrists are like this big around, and everybody's like, everyone's real chunky because that's heroic scale. They're more like true scale, so their wrists and things are a little bit skinnier and stuff like that, a little bit more true to life, probably. But they're neat models, and they're great for conversions. Like if you were going to be doing, like I was talking about before, that Turnip 28 stuff, like that's like those types of companies are the way to go, because you can get, I don't know, it's like 24 models in a box for like 30 or 35 bucks, and there's a zillion heads. You can only build 24 dudes, but there's like 100 heads in there or more. So yeah, it's a lot of different things going on. Let's see here. One Page Rules working on Battlefleet Gothic type game. Oh, that'll be kind of cool. I need to paint my friend a bust of a grognard to celebrate him being the biggest grog I know. Nice. Slaughter Priest. Yeah, this is a Slaughter Priest. That's who this is. Actually, this Slaughter Priest was painted by Miniac. Actually, this is several years ago. He painted this guy and put him on eBay for I don't it just was just to do it, and then I bought him. And he was I literally don't know that I paid more than $30. But yeah, so he sits there. Let's see. Have to head off to work. Have a great morning, day, night, everyone. Well, good to see you, David Moffat. Let's see here. Wargames Atlantic recently released their version of Squats as well. Oh, I didn't know about that. That's kind of cool. It's almost like GW is a multi-million-dollar corporation that has been doing this for decades. Oh yeah, absolutely. But that's why their molds and everything else, frankly, costs a lot more. I don't know this for sure. Those of you who maybe work in the industry can tell me, and I don't mean the game industry, I mean the injection molded plastic industry. When you make a mold, let's say for a metal miniature, or resin, those are made with rubber molds, which means you take the master sculpt and you put it in thing and you pour stuff in there and you make a 2-part mold, and there's a whole process and spin casting and all that crap. You're going to do injection molded plastic at a big scale, an industrial style scale, then those molds are made out of steel. Now, you don't take the original version of the model and put it in a thing and pour a bunch of molten steel on it, and then that's not how that works, right? Obviously, because the molten steel would melt pretty much anything you put in there. So the way that, from what I understand, the way that these things are done these days is that they are actually like kind of the molds themselves are ground out from the inside. And if you think about when you have this sharp blade that you want to on your Slaughter Priest's axe, to get a tool up inside there to grind that stuff, they have to be so incredibly fine, and they're all computer controlled. It's like a little arm that reaches in there and grinds out all the different parts. Sometimes when you look at sprues these days, you will see in the sprue areas, not in the model areas because they do better usually about smoothing that stuff out, but in the sprue areas you might see like tool marks from like where it was kind of grinding on the inside of the mold, right? And so it's much more expensive to make molds that have super sharp details than it is to make molds that the details are not as sharp, just because they have to basically grind the inside of the mold, and you have to get such a tiny tool in there to make such tiny little grinds and such tiny little incuts that it's much more expensive, from what I understand. I could be wrong. They could be actually just pouring molten steel on top of a model that they did, but I don't think that's the case. That wouldn't work. Painting up more of my Harlequins for Kill Team today. Those lines are killer, but got to get them done. Or you could decide not to. I don't particularly like Harlequins too much, just because it's space clowns. I'm just not interested. And that's the other thing too, is that they're always shown with like those crazy checkmark pants and all that. And I'm just like, I look at that and I'm like, I'm never going to paint that. That sounds like a pain in the butt. So you could decide that this particular troop of Harlequins likes really colorful pants, but not checkmarked pants. And that would save you some time. Just trying to throw something out there for you if you're interested. Let's see here. Necromunda released a video game. That's true. I haven't played it yet, but I did get it on the PlayStation 4. Let's see here. I'm late again to the party, but good afternoon. Currently building Necron Tomb Blades. Nice. Love the channel, listening yet not into the tabletop gaming. Well, cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad to have you here to listen, and if you're interested at some point, maybe you'll get into it, and but not everybody does. That's fine. Some people just like to paint. Like they'll just I'm not going to ever play, but I like to build little models and paint and things like that. Some people play mostly and barely ever paint. That's also fine. I have a tendency to paint more than I play. Certainly, I'm not a competitive player, but yeah. I can't back this up, but I've heard they use high-pressure water in a CNC machine to make the GW molds. Yeah, I could see that potentially too. Yeah. I know I took pictures. I was at a factory taking pictures for something for a job I used to work at, and they had water jet CNCs, not so much for cutting, not so much for making molds, but for cutting sheets of metal. They also had laser ones. Those were cool because they made lots of sparks, and it was a lot of fun to photograph those. The water jet one was not as much fun to photograph. But they also had a machine that could go, and they would have like a mold, and the machine would like poke this arm, this little robot arm into it to test like tolerances and stuff like that. And yeah, it's astounding the way that humans can make stuff. You only have to suffer through checkmark pants like 6 or 7 times for Kill Team. Boo. That sounds like no fun. It is a pain in the butt. I only ended up doing checkered half on the pant leg and instead I'm happy with it. Well, that's good. You can pour a lead mold over silicone, for example. Lead molds just lost detail with every cast. Yeah, that's true too. Necromunda game is great fun, but make sure to play the story first to understand the rules. Oh, the video game. Sure. Yeah. Missed part of the stream because I took a nap during the stream. Adam, your voice is great. Background noises for sleep. I've heard that before, and that's fine. I'm glad to help. We can all use more sleep. I painted 40 checkerboard Space Marine shoulder pads. No more, thanks. Yeah, that sounds like a pain in the butt, too. Physical sculpting, then over to 3D scanning, then CAD CAM for splitting into frames, then resin print for QC, then over to water jet steel molding for some variant of that process. Yeah, it is a, like, people talk about like, well, these models, it just cost pennies to make each sprue. Yeah, but the molds cost $40,000 to $50,000 on the bigger ones. You know what I mean? When you're talking about like you can get away with like these types of molds because they're not particularly big, and also because they're not particularly detailed. I have a suspicion, I don't know this for sure, but I have a suspicion that they cost less to make as well. But when you're talking about a bigger, like it makes, I don't know, a Land Raider or something, those big sprues. Like when you see those big sprues that come in the boxes for, like Indominus, like those big sprues full of all kinds of tiny little pieces. Those molds cost an incredible amount of money. So some of the Indominus Marines have the tilt plate thing on their chest. Not sure what I'm supposed to do with them, so they're just white. Oh yeah, that weird little shield thing. Yeah. It's weird. I don't know. Like they don't do a lot of jousting, so I don't know why it needs to be there. But it's just cool looking, I guess. I don't know. Let's see here. Any news about Warcry Catacombs release date? Not so far. Maybe they'll mention something in today's stream, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. My dad used to manufacture industrial die presses, and he would absolutely be fascinated by the amount of detail that computer machine dies could produce. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, is that it's all about the computer stuff these days, and that's why these models, like the GW style models, and also like weird games, Malifaux, like their models are also, I would say, manufacturing wise, are easily at the same level, in my opinion, as GW right now. The people who are making the designs are, how am I trying to say this? Malifaux miniatures are really hard to build because they will make the tiniest of pieces. Like, oh, I have to put on this guy's beard separately. That's an actual thing. There was this guy as part of the 10 Thunders faction. I can't think of his name. Yo Lin, something like that. And his beard, like just his like little goatee, was a separate piece. I mean, his head is that big, and you had to glue his beard on separately. But the models look amazing if you can get them built. So there's something to be said about. I think GW does think more about the actual process of putting the model together, so that it's not as difficult. I was just having this discussion on Twitch a couple days ago about whether or not, though, they think about the painters when they do the sculpts, because there's times when you're working on these models where you're like, I can barely reach this. This is hard to get at, or whatever. Especially with those Night Haunts, yeah, because there's like one of the Night Haunts has got because they're basically just like a cloak with no body, and there's like a head up here, and there's like arms sticking out, and there's just a cloak kind of floating along. But there was a chain on the inside of the cloak running through and kind of down to the base, and he's like dragging the chain. It was chain rasps, strangely enough. How do you paint that chain on the inside? Because if you catch him in just the right angle, you could see the chain in there. So you got to paint it, but you have to basically get your brush to slide in between these two parts of the. It's just, yeah. And so I do wonder sometimes when they put this stuff together if they when they're working on the process and things like that, they're obviously thinking about where the sprue placement is and how to get the most models on the sprue and all that kind of stuff. But I do wonder sometimes if they're thinking about, the actual, like, how hard is this to paint? That's also a problem. So, let's see here. Any opinion on the quality of the plastics made by North Star Miniatures for Frostgrave? They're, also not as sharp detail-wise as GW, but they're nice plastics. I've got the cultists, I've got the soldiers, I've got some barbarians. I have some lady ones too. Lady soldiers maybe, or lady barbarians. I don't remember. I've got a bunch of different boxes of them though, and I use them for all kinds of weird kit bashing stuff. So yeah, they're nice. I like those. They're not razor sharp like a lot of the GW stuff is, but they're very good. I heard good things about Malifaux plastic. Surprised by negative comments. They're good. Like I said, they're very good. It's just that they're hard to build. Like once you get them done, you are like, wow, this is a great looking model. But they are difficult to build. Like to the point where a couple years ago at Gen Con, in the Weird Games booth, they were selling a shirt that said, "I survived Yan Lo's beard," or whatever the character's name is, and it was about like how hard it was to build that model and his little tiny beard on his little tiny face. So they know that they're putting these together in a way that's maybe not necessarily the easiest. It's not for the beginner modelers. It's a little bit more advanced. But yeah, so let's see here. I always tell myself if I can see it, I'll get it painted. Yeah, I frequently on the Twitch stream say, if you can't see it, don't paint it. And then there's times when I'm like, well, I can kind of see this, so I'm going to try to kind of paint it. I guess that seems to be the way it works. That's my thought with the Plasmancer. How do I paint? How do I paint in there? For me, it's going to be airbrush prime and then leave the inside dark, and that's just going to be fine. I'll airbrush in black or whatever, and everything else will be just like, well, that's the inside, just dark in there. Malifaux are beautiful, but frustrating to build the spindly ones, and so easy to damage afterwards. Yeah, they're gorgeous models, but they are hard to build, and some of them, because they're so spindly, like, they're a little fragile. So for traveling and stuff like that, they can be kind of troublesome. But they're great looking models. Soldiers 2 are the women. Yeah, for the North Star. Yep. Let's see here. Half our group probably won't touch Necromunda again, but we've been convinced to try Kill Team instead. We're thinking a couple competitive match games a week. Kill Team's a good game. It really is. Would the Frostgrave cultists be useful for 40k conversions? Potentially. If you put some like auto guns on them and stuff like that, if you can find some auto guns. The only issue is, to some degree, is that the only good place to find auto guns, those particular models, are generally on regular GW Chaos cultists. So, that's kind of the thing. It's hard to find those particular models to kit bash onto the other guys. But you could just do some head swaps. Those are kind of cool. Although the Chaos Cultists they're kind of very easy to build. They're a couple of pieces and that's it. So you'd have to actually get at them with an X-Acto blade or a Dremel or something to get rid of their heads and then replace them with because the heads that come with the cultists for North Star, those Frostgrave cultists, they are very characterful. Let's just say that. Like they have these sort of, like a lot of them have these sort of pointy kind of almost like hoods. They're like they're not exactly. They're not like hoods like KKK hoods, but they are kind of pointy, almost like a gnome hat, you know what I mean? And then they have like these big eye holes and then like a big mouth thing, and they're frequently like baring their teeth. They're like, because they're all crazy or whatever, because they're cultists, I guess. I don't know. But some of the models, some of those heads are sort of funny. So you could use something like that. But the Frostgrave stuff is going to be a little bit smaller maybe in scale than GW stuff, a little bit. So I don't know how well that would work. If you just go overall smaller, you could just say these people are small for reasons. I don't know. The plant they grew up on, lots of gravity, or bad nutrition. Who knows? There's lots of possibilities there, I guess. Which is more frustrating to build, Malifaux or Infinity? Well, Malifaux has the bonus in that they're plastic, so that makes things a little easier. Infinity, old Infinity was a giant pain because they were metal and also zillions of pieces. From what I've been told, the newer Infinity models, though still metal, are a lot easier to build because they've reduced the amount of pieces by a good deal. through some sort of new processes. I'm not exactly sure, or just maybe thinking about it more and going, people complain about how this model was 16 pieces of metal and it was a pain in the ass to build, and so yeah. I think that the newer stuff from Infinity is easier to build, from what I've been told by multiple people. Including John Ashley Smith here, who says the most recent Infinity models assemble much easier than their older sculpts. See, there you go. I'm not the only one who's saying that. Necromunda kits have additional weapons. Check out Orlocks and Caudor in particular for Chaos Cultists. Oh, that's a good idea too, yeah. Definitely. Does Frostgrave stuff mix well with Perry minis? I know of Perry minis. I don't know any of their stuff though, so I don't know about that. It's a good question. Well, folks, it is 11 a.m. in my neck of the woods, so I want to thank folks for everybody for coming by and talking a little bit about what little tiny teaser we got about Kill Team, and hopefully my hopes and dreams about what it might actually be if they make a kind of a Kill Team box set that's a little bit like Space Hulk with little modular hallways and rooms and stuff like that made out of that thicker chipboard. I'm all in. I would be very interested in playing that game. If they don't, well, then we'll see, I guess, what they do come out with. But they said allegedly earlier part of this upcoming year, I guess, so hopefully we'll see something soon. But yeah, I want to, again, like I said, thank everybody for coming by. If you're interested, I'm also streaming on Twitch 2 days a week. I do Monday night, which will be tomorrow night for me, at 7 p.m. Central till 10 p.m. Central. And on Friday mornings, I do 10 a.m. Central to 1 p.m. Central. Although this upcoming Friday, I will probably be earlier than usual, and that is because I will be streaming for Essen. If you guys have heard of Essen Spiel, it's this huge convention, largest tabletop gaming convention in the world. It takes place in Germany every year. They're obviously doing it virtually this year, and I am going to be teaching people how to paint some board game style minis as opposed to wargaming style minis. Again, on that with the folks from Board Game Geek. So I'll be doing that. So you could drop by on Friday, but I think it starts. I think I'm starting at like 8 o'clock Central. So it'll be a different time. But otherwise, I may also stream. I don't know. I'm kicking around maybe streaming this upcoming Saturday this week on Twitch as well, just because I will be skipping one because I'm doing the other stuff. But anyway, I'll post about that on, I don't know, Twitter or someplace and that kind of stuff, maybe Facebook. But we'll see. But thanks again for coming by, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, and thanks for watching.